Space is a very big place. It's bigger than anything you can imagine. It's full of stars and planets and moons. People have always looked up at the night sky and wondered what was out there. They dreamed of flying among the stars. They wanted to visit other worlds. So they built special ships to travel through space. These ships are called spaceships. They're kind of like boats that sail on an ocean of darkness, an ocean dotted with the bright lights of distant suns. They carry brave explorers on amazing adventures to places no one has ever been before. These spaceships are strong and fast. They have powerful engines that push them through the vast emptiness. Inside, they have everything astronauts need to live. There is air to breathe and food to eat. There are computers to guide the ship and windows to look out at the beautiful sights of the universe. Traveling in a spaceship is a great adventure. It's really a journey into the unknown. Every trip is a chance to learn something new about our amazing universe. The astronauts who fly these ships are pioneers, exploring the final frontier for all of humankind. One of these spaceships was called the Stardust. It was a small, sturdy ship built for exploring. It had a crew of 2 people, Captain Leo and his co-pilot, Mia. Leo was brave and smart. He had been flying in space for a long time. Mia was young and curious. She loved solving puzzles and was an expert with the ship's computers and sensors. Together, they made a great team. They loved their job. They loved floating among the stars and seeing new things every single day. Their mission was to chart a new region of space far from home. Their journey had been calm and peaceful. They flew past giant planets with colorful rings. They saw comets with long, icy tails that glittered in the starlight. They mapped star clusters that looked like piles of sparkling diamonds against black velvet. Leo and Mia took turns piloting the Stardust. When they were not working, they would look out the main window, sipping hot chocolate from special space cups. They felt lucky to be on this incredible journey. They talked about the wonders they had seen and dreamed of the discoveries that were still waiting for them out in the quiet, endless night. One day, something unusual happened. A blinking light appeared on Mia's computer screen. Beep, beep, beep. It was a signal, but it was not a normal one. It was a distress call, a call for help from another ship. But the signal was old and very weak, like a faint whisper carried on the solar wind. Leo came over to look at the screen. He frowned. "That's strange," he said. "There are no other ships scheduled to be in this part of space. We are supposed to be completely alone out here." Mia typed on her keyboard, trying to make the signal stronger. They followed the weak signal for many hours. The Stardust moved silently through the blackness, getting closer and closer to the source of the mysterious call. Leo and Mia were both excited and a little bit nervous. What would they find? Was it a ship in trouble, or was it something else entirely? The signal grew a little stronger with each passing minute. Mia was able to get a better reading. "It's definitely a spaceship," she announced. "An old model, but a big one. It's called the Wanderer." Leo had heard stories about the Wanderer. It was a famous science vessel that had vanished without a trace many years ago. Finally, they saw it. The Wanderer was huge. It was much bigger than the Stardust. It was dark and silent, drifting slowly in a lazy circle. No lights were on. No engine sounds came from it. It looked like a ghost ship, lost and forgotten in the deep, dark ocean of space. The distress signal had stopped, as if it had used its last bit of energy to call out to them. The ship floated eerily, a giant shadow against the backdrop of a billion distant stars. Leo and Mia stared at it on their view screen, their hearts beating a little faster. "It looks completely empty," Mia whispered, her eyes wide. "There are no life signs, no heat, no energy readings at all." Leo nodded slowly, his hand on his chin. "But something sent that signal," he said. "We have to go over there and investigate. We need to find out what happened to the Wanderer and its crew." He knew it could be dangerous. Exploring an abandoned ship in the middle of nowhere was a risky job. But they were explorers, and a mystery was waiting for them, a puzzle that only they could solve. Leo and Mia put on their white spacesuits. The suits were bulky but kept them safe. They had big helmets with clear visors so they could see. They also had little radios inside their helmets so they could talk to each other. They took a small shuttle from the Stardust over to the giant, silent ship. As they got closer, the Wanderer looked even bigger and more mysterious. A large door, the main airlock, was slightly open, as if it were waiting for them. The shuttle docked gently next to the open door, making a soft clunking sound that seemed very loud in the deep silence. They stepped out of their shuttle and into the airlock of the Wanderer. Inside, it was completely dark. The only light came from the lamps on their helmets. Their beams cut through the blackness, showing walls covered in dust. The air was still and cold. It felt like no one had been there for a very, very long time. "Hello?" Leo called out, his voice sounding strange and muffled in his helmet. "Is anyone here?" Only silence answered him. The quiet was so deep it felt heavy, pressing in on them from all sides. It was like stepping into a tomb. Their boots made soft, crunching sounds on the dusty floor as they walked. They moved carefully down a long, dark corridor. The beams from their helmet lights danced ahead of them, revealing empty rooms and dark doorways. Everything was covered in a thick layer of fine, gray dust. It was on the chairs, the control panels, and the floors. It looked like gray snow had fallen inside the ship and never melted. They felt like they were the first people to walk here in many, many years. Every step they took felt like a step into the past, into a forgotten story. Mia pointed her light at a wall. There were pictures hanging there. They were photos of the crew of the Wanderer. There were men and women, all smiling and looking happy. They looked like a friendly team, excited about their journey. It was strange to see their happy faces in this dark, silent place. It made the mystery even bigger. Where did all these smiling people go? What could have happened on this ship to make everyone disappear? Leo and Mia looked at each other, their faces serious. They knew they had to keep going to find the answers. As they walked deeper into the ship, they started to find more clues. In the ship's cafeteria, they found tables with plates of dried-up food still on them. It looked like the crew had left in the middle of a meal. A game of chess was sitting on one table, with the pieces frozen in the middle of a move. It was as if time had suddenly stopped for everyone on board. Mia ran a scanner over the food. "The food is very old," she said. "This ship has been drifting for at least 50 years, maybe more." 50 years was a very long time to be lost in space. They continued their exploration, moving from room to room. Each new place they entered added another piece to the growing puzzle. In the crew's living quarters, they found clothes neatly folded in drawers and books left open on beds. It seemed like everyone had just vanished in an instant, without any warning at all. There were no signs of a struggle. There was no damage to the ship, no broken walls or shattered windows. It was all just empty. The silence was sometimes broken by a soft metallic creak as the old ship shifted slightly, making them both jump. Suddenly, a strange sound echoed down the corridor. It was a faint musical humming sound. It was soft and beautiful, like a lullaby. Leo and Mia stopped walking and stood perfectly still, listening. Where was that music coming from? It was the first sound they had heard inside the Wanderer besides their own footsteps. The humming seemed to be calling to them, pulling them forward. It was both spooky and enchanting. They looked at each other, a question in their eyes. Should they follow the sound? Their curiosity was stronger than their fear. They moved slowly and quietly toward the source of the humming. It grew a little louder as they walked, leading them down a winding hallway they hadn't seen before. The air seemed to get warmer, and a faint soft light began to glow from around a corner up ahead. The light was a gentle blue color, pulsing softly in time with the music. What could be making that sound? And that light? They were about to find out. They held their breath and took another step forward, ready for whatever they might discover in the heart of the ghost ship. Before they followed the strange humming sound, Leo decided they should check the most important room on the ship, the bridge. The bridge was the control center, where the captain and crew would fly the ship. The doors to the bridge slid open with a soft hiss of old air. Inside, the room was large and circular, with a huge window looking out at the stars. Control panels with hundreds of dark buttons and screens lined the walls. In the very center of the room sat a large chair. It was the captain's chair, and it was empty. Mia went over to one of the computer consoles. She blew a cloud of dust off the screen and tried to turn it on. To her surprise, it flickered to life. The ship's emergency power was still working, just barely. "I'm in," she said. "I can access the ship's log." The ship's log was like a diary, where the captain would record everything that happened each day. Mia started reading the last entries, her voice soft in their helmet radios. The final entries were strange. The captain wrote about a beautiful sound and a strange light they had found in a nearby asteroid field. The captain's log described how the crew had become fascinated by the discovery. They had never seen or heard anything like it before. The log said the crew was feeling very peaceful and happy. The final entry was short and simple. It just said, "We are going to see the garden. It's so beautiful. We don't need the ship anymore." After that, the log went silent. There were no more entries. What did the captain mean by the garden? And why would they leave their ship? It was a very confusing clue. Leo looked at the empty captain's chair. He imagined the captain sitting there, writing that last message. He must have been so captivated by what he had found. But it still didn't make sense. You can't survive in space without a spaceship. Leaving the Wanderer would have been a terrible mistake. The mystery was getting deeper and deeper. The musical humming they had heard earlier now seemed even more important. It had to be connected to this garden the captain had written about. They knew what they had to do next. They had to find the source of that humming. Leaving the bridge, Leo and Mia went back to the corridor where they had heard the music. The gentle humming was still there, a soft and constant melody that seemed to fill the air. As they walked toward the pulsing blue light, they noticed something new on the floor. There was a trail of sparkling dust. It was not the same as the gray dust that covered the rest of the ship. This dust shimmered with all the colors of the rainbow. It glowed faintly, creating a magical path for them to follow. The trail led directly toward the source of the light and sound. They followed the sparkling trail carefully. It led them through parts of the ship that looked different from the rest. The walls here were not gray and dusty. They seemed to shimmer with a faint light, as if they were made of mother of pearl. The air felt warmer and filled with a sweet, pleasant smell, like flowers after a spring rain. It was a strange and wonderful transformation. It felt less like a spaceship and more like an enchanted cave. Mia scooped up a little bit of the glowing dust in a sample bag. She wanted to study it later. The humming grew louder and the blue light became brighter as they got closer. They passed by another set of crew quarters. Inside one room, they saw something amazing. A spacesuit was lying on the floor, but it was empty. The helmet was detached and the suit was unzipped. It looked like the person who was wearing it had simply vanished right out of it. Next to the suit was a small pile of the same sparkly, colorful dust they were following. It was a startling discovery. It was as if the crew hadn't just left the ship, they had somehow changed. This new clue was the most confusing of all. People can't just turn into sparkling dust. It was impossible. Leo and Mia looked at the empty spacesuit and then at the trail on the floor. A strange idea began to form in Leo's mind. It was a wild idea, something from a science fiction story, but in the deep, mysterious quiet of space, anything seemed possible. He thought about the captain's final log entry. "We don't need the ship anymore." Maybe they didn't need their bodies either. They were very close to the answer now. They just had to see what was around the next corner. Finally, they reached the end of the corridor. The humming sound was all around them now, a beautiful and peaceful song. The glowing trail of dust led them to a huge open room at the very back of the ship. This was the cargo bay, where supplies were usually stored, but it wasn't filled with boxes and crates. The entire room had been transformed into something incredible. It was a garden, but it was not a garden of green plants and colorful flowers. It was a garden made of giant, glowing crystals. The crystals pulsed with a soft blue and purple light, and they were the source of the beautiful humming sound. The crystals were all different shapes and sizes. Some were tall and thin like trees, reaching up to the ceiling. Others were short and round, like sparkling bushes. The light from the crystals filled the entire room, making everything glow. The air was warm and smelled sweet. In the center of the garden was a large, perfectly round crystal that pulsed with a brighter light than all the others. Leo and Mia walked slowly into the crystal garden, their eyes wide with wonder. They had never seen anything so beautiful in all their travels. It was a breathtaking sight. Mia used her scanner to study the crystals. The readings were off the charts. The crystals were alive. They were a form of life that no human had ever encountered before. They were not plants or animals. They were something completely new. The scanner showed that the crystals were giving off a powerful energy field. It was an energy of peace and contentment. It made them feel calm and happy just by being near it. The humming sound was the crystal's way of communicating, a song of pure joy. Then they saw it. All around the base of the giant crystals were small piles of the same sparkling dust they had seen before. There were dozens of them. Leo realized what he was seeing. This was the crew of the Wanderer. They hadn't vanished. They had joined the crystal garden. The strange energy from the crystals had transformed them, turning their physical bodies into pure, happy energy. They had become part of the beautiful music and light. They had chosen to stay here in this peaceful garden forever. The mystery was finally solved. Standing in the glowing crystal garden, Leo and Mia finally understood the whole story. The crew of the Wanderer had discovered these living crystals on an asteroid. They brought a small sample back to their ship to study it. But the crystal grew, fed by the ship's energy, and it transformed the cargo bay into this magical garden. The crew was not taken by force. They were enchanted by the beauty and peace of the crystals. They chose to give up their old lives to become part of this new, beautiful existence. It was a happy ending, just a very strange one. Mia pointed to the large central crystal. A pattern of light was swirling inside it. It was not random. It was a message. Using her computer, Mia translated the light patterns. It was a message from the crew of the Wanderer, now part of the crystal consciousness. The message said, "We are happy. We are at peace. This is not an end, but a new beginning. Thank you for visiting. Go in peace." The message was full of warmth and joy. Leo and Mia felt a sense of relief. The crew of the Wanderer was safe and happy in their own unique way. They knew they could not stay. This garden was for the crew of the Wanderer. Leo and Mia's adventure was out there, among the stars. They took one last look at the beautiful, glowing garden. They would never forget what they had seen. It was a secret that they would keep safe. They sent a simple message back to the crystal, using the light from their helmets. They flashed their lights to say, "We understand. Goodbye." The central crystal pulsed brightly one last time, as if it were waving farewell. With the mystery solved, it was time to go home. They walked back through the silent ship, but it didn't feel spooky anymore. It felt peaceful. They knew it was not a ghost ship, but a cradle for a new kind of life. They left the Wanderer exactly as they had found it, a silent monument drifting among the stars. They closed the airlock door behind them, leaving the crystal garden to sing its beautiful song in peace. Their own small shuttle carried them away from the giant ship back toward the familiar comfort of the Stardust. Back on board the Stardust, Leo and Mia took off their bulky spacesuits. The ship felt warm and cozy after the cold emptiness of the Wanderer. They sat in their chairs and looked at the ghost ship on their view screen as it grew smaller and smaller. They had solved the mystery. It was a much stranger and more wonderful story than they could have ever imagined. Mia finished analyzing the sample of sparkling dust she had collected. It was made of pure energy, confirming their theory. The crew had become beings of light and sound. Leo wrote a report for Space Command. He said they had found the Wanderer. He reported that the ship was empty but undamaged. He did not mention the Crystal Garden or the crew's transformation. He knew that some secrets were too wonderful and strange to be shared. Some mysteries should remain mysteries. He simply wrote that the crew was lost, and their fate would remain unknown. He declared the Wanderer a memorial, a lost ship that should be left undisturbed to drift peacefully among the stars for eternity. With their mission complete, they turned the Stardust around and set a course for home. The journey back would be long, but they had an incredible story to tell each other over and over again. They had faced a great mystery and found the answer. They had been brave and clever. They had seen something that no other human had ever seen before, a garden made of living starlight and music. Their adventure had been a success, and they felt proud of what they had accomplished together as a team. As the Stardust flew toward home, Leo and Mia looked out the window at the endless sea of stars. The universe seemed even bigger and more full of wonder than before. They knew there were more mysteries out there, more adventures waiting to be had. They were happy to be explorers, sailing on the cosmic ocean. And as they traveled, they could almost hear a faint, beautiful humming sound in the back of their minds, a happy memory of the ghost ship and its secret, sparkling garden. They were safe, and they were heading home.